My name is Jacob, and here is my story I want to share. Mine is not a fake profile that I met, but I met a scammer. I was on an international dating app when I met Lita, but I called her Lita. I'm 38 years old, and Lita said she was 30. We met on the app when I liked her photo and she matched with mine. We started chatting on the app and then exchanged numbers, and she chatted on a free calling app with me. We texted back and forth. She told me she lived in Cebu, Philippines. She was not married and she had a young son who was 8 years old. She told me that she lived at home with her parents and her two sisters, who also each had a young child at home. I realized when we first chatted that she lived in a situation where she wasn't wealthy, but she wouldn't ask for money right away like a normal scammer or a fake would. She wouldn't video chat with me, though, the first couple weeks of us talking. She told me that she has insecurities about her looks and was unsure, that she thought I wouldn't like her. She did send me several pictures of herself in chat, and she would say she was eating dinner and then take a picture of her holding her plate of food. Or she would say she was having her morning coffee and send me a picture of her holding a cup of coffee. I would do the same, and told her I really liked her for who she was and asked her to video chat with me, or at least consider it. Lita would say she's shy and scared to show herself, but I kept encouraging her. We would talk through the app and text all the time. She asked my favorite foods, my music, and religion. We're both Catholic, so we would share our views. She told me that the father of her son left when she was pregnant, and she had no contact with him, and that her son had no father figure other than her father, his grandfather, but he's not well and he has a lot of health issues. I really felt for Lita and her son. I have no kids, and I was married at 25 and divorced by the time I was 30. My ex-wife didn't want kids, and the marriage was terrible. We were too young, and we were like oil and water. I told Lita I always wanted to be a father and have kids. Lita said she was willing to have another child as well if things with us worked out and went into a real relationship. I told her my ex-wife had cheated on me during our marriage, so I had trust issues, and she was understanding to this. I kept pushing for needing to have trust and asked her several times to video chat. Lita told me she is so shy, but I think she knew I would move on if she didn't video. So, early one morning my time, she video chatted with me. She was the woman in the video, and it wasn't a recording or anything weird. She was a bit shy, and it looked like she was in a bedroom, and it was a little dark, but it was her, and she matched her photo. From that moment on, she started to voice chat and video chat with me pretty regularly. Not every day, or sometimes she wouldn't answer when I video called, but she would call me right back shortly on video, so I know she was the woman in the video and the voice in the calls. We started an online relationship. She would call me, I would call her, video chat and phone calls. We were committed to each other. We were together for about 4 months, and she didn't once ask me for anything. She would say how hard life was, and she said she worked part-time at a nail salon in her city, but that it was hard to make money as they pay very low. I live in Colorado and work for Costco, so I have a good paying job, and I told her I'd been with Costco for nearly 10 years and I worked as a supervisor. She often, though, would get jealous when I went to work. She asked me if I worked with other females. Well, of course I did. It's a store. I would work 5 days a week, and usually from 8 in the morning until 5 at night. But sometimes I would pick up extra shifts, and that's when we would argue. She would accuse me of cheating on her because I worked late or worked extra hours or extra days. I told her that I never usually turn down an extra shift or extra hours. At this point, I was trying to put money away to save to come and visit Lita. She would always get so mad when I told her I was working extra hours or days, and that the money would go towards saving for the flight to visit her. It was so weird when she would get all upset like that. As I told her, I'm trying to make a better situation of our relationship and save money so we can meet in person. It was at the 6-month mark I started talking more about visiting in a few months. I had planned to come over around October when I could take vacation. Lita said she was upset because she wasn't able to pay for her son's school tuition fees, and he would be forced to quit his good school. When I asked her how much the fee was, she told me not to worry about it, that she would just work more hours at the nail salon and try to come up with the money. She had 2 weeks to get this money for his tuition. She told me it was around 12,000 Philippine pesos, which was roughly around $200. I told Lita I could help her with his tuition so he can stay in school, and she told me no, that he would just go without an education. She then asked me if I was sure I could do this and help. She said the easiest way was to send the money via Cash App. I was going to wire it to her with Western Union, but she insisted on using Cash App, as she says it's difficult for Filipinos to get money from the USA, as they are suspicious and sometimes the clerks will keep the money. She gave me her sister's Cash App name and said she could get the money that way and her sister would give it to her. Well, I sent her $250 for her son's tuition, and she said she paid it and that her son loves going to school. We continued our relationship, and I kept saying I was planning to book my flight and hotel to visit her in October. When I would bring it up, though, she would get upset, saying things are so rough here right now. Wait until maybe Christmas time. And I told her I can't get time off from work at Christmas, and they block out those weeks before and after Christmas for vacation time and approval. I told her I'd like to come the week of Halloween, as it would be best for work and for me, and flights were more affordable. I told her to let me know if that works, and she had to get to work, but would let me know as we talked later that night. Lita didn't call me that night. In fact, I didn't hear from her for 3 days. I was absolutely worried sick. I didn't know what was going on. She then told me that there was a typhoon and her home was destroyed and she had no power and no internet, and her home flooded, and that her son, parents, sisters, and their kids were sleeping in the dirt outside. She sent me a picture of where she said they were all sleeping. She said their home was destroyed, and sent me pictures of a destroyed home that she said was hers. She called me crying, saying she didn't know what to do, and to rebuild the home it would cost around 221,000 Philippine pesos to repair the house and get it back to normal, which I believe was roughly around 4,000 US dollars, which just happened to be the cost of my flight, hotel, and vacation plans. Lita was screaming, crying on the phone, saying she was scared and that the workers are willing to rebuild the home, but she didn't know what to do as they didn't have the money. She said she also needed money for her and her family to stay at a hotel while they fixed the home. She kept telling me and saying that her and her son were in danger as robbers were hurting people who were sleeping in the street and there was street gangs all around them. I felt this horrible pressure to save her. Lita asked me if she could send the vacation money I had saved, and maybe we could meet over the next summer instead. I told her I would send what I had to help her and her family and her son. She asked me to send the money via an RIA, and she could pick it up. I guess suddenly now she wouldn't have issues getting money where before she had me send it to her sister. I sent the money the next day, and she told me she got it, and the workers are starting right away to fix the home, and they were staying in a hotel until the building was fixed and safe again. I ended up sending her a little over 5,000 US dollars. She sent me photos of the home being rebuilt, which I thought was her parents' house. Lita and I continued our relationship, and she was still jealous of me working so much. But I told her I have to work hard to replace the money for vacation, and I couldn't wait for us to meet. The house, she said, got rebuilt, and then her father suddenly became very sick. She said he had a stroke and needed care as he had become partially paralyzed from the stroke, and they couldn't afford to pay for his medication or care. Lita asked me if I could send her $1,000 to help with her father's care, as she was working at the nail salon caring for her son and taking care of her mother by this point. This was again money I had saved for vacation, but I told her I would help, and in the end I ended up sending her the $1,000 again via RIA transfer. We would often have arguments about money and me working so much. Again, I told her I have to work to save money so we could meet. By now, we had planned to meet in July of next year, but little things came up here and there. She would ask me to send money for food, $50 here, $100 there. We were both on TikTok too, and her sister started following me on TikTok as well. Lita told me that her son's tuition was due again, and she wasn't making enough money at the salon to pay for his schooling. She asked if I could pay for his tuition again, as it's paid every quarter. I told her it's getting difficult to save money to visit her, and she told me that's okay, we can meet in September instead of July. I told her I had to get to work, but we could talk about her son's tuition for school later that night when I got home from work. Well, at work and on break, I received a message on TikTok from her sister Jasmine, which was her youngest sister, who she said was 19. Jasmine asked if she could talk to me in private without any consequences, as she had something very important to tell me. I told her of course and asked her what was wrong. The first thing Jasmine said to me was, please stop sending money to Lita, as she's not who I think she is. I asked her what she meant and what was going on. Jasmine told me that Lita was lying to me and chatting with other men online, and that she's really married and chats with men for their lavish lifestyle, but that she's seen that I was video chatting with her and she thought I was a nice guy and wanted to warn me, as other men have been taken for thousands, and that her sister Lita used her Cash App to accept money from me, and Lita told her not to say anything to me. That's when it upset Jasmine. She didn't want to be involved in any of this. I didn't believe her at first, but then Jasmine sent me pictures of Lita with her 3 kids and husband. I said she told me she has just a son and that her other sisters each have a child. She said no, Lita has 3 kids and she tells the same story to all men, that she needs money for her son's tuition, because she said all the men connect with her wanting to be a father to her son. I was floored and I didn't know what to say. Jasmine warned me and continued to send me photos of Lita's wedding to her husband. She also told me that Lita is 37 years old and not 30, as she told me, and she changes her ages to fit each story she tells each man. She showed me proof of Lita's real age. She told me she was angry that Lita was using her Cash App to accept money and they had a falling out, and that she wanted revenge on her sister for using her Cash App to accept money as part of her scam. She warned me to block Lita and run as fast as I could, as her and her husband are both involved in this scam and they use money they get from men to fill their lavish lifestyle. Jasmine showed me pictures she took of Lita's bedroom with designer bags and shoes. I asked Jasmine if their home was destroyed in a storm, and she said no, that was another lie, and told me to check the weather reports. Check the news. There was no typhoon. Lita tells this to a lot of men to get money. And I still couldn't totally take this in and believe it. I told Jasmine, how do I know you're not just jealous of Lita and I's relationship? I told Jasmine I had to get back to work and I was so upset. And I told Jasmine to video chat me later, and she said she would. So later that night, when I got off of work, Jasmine video chatted with me. She said Lita was out with her husband and kids, and they all did live in the same home, but Lita lived upstairs and the family downstairs. She had me on video and walked me through Lita's upstairs home. Beautiful furniture, designer clothing, bags, shoes, and she showed me more photos of Lita with her husband and kids on vacation and more, even a photo of the car they had bought. She said Lita has done this for years and was chatting with men in the UK, Australia, and one from Canada, as well as me. That she was sick and living a life like a rich person and using her family's bank accounts and more to get the money. I thanked Jasmine for warning me, and finally, even though heartbroken, I saw the truth. I didn't confront Lita as I didn't want to cause a big family fight. I didn't know the entire situation, but I knew that I was being taken for a fool. I blocked Lita with no goodbye, no nothing, and changed my phone number and blocked her from my social media, chat apps, and every single way she had to get a hold of me. I never gave her my address where I worked, but she knew where I lived, but I never heard from her again, nor her sister Jasmine, and I closed my TikTok and changed my username. I don't know if I still should have thanked Jasmine or what the real motive was, but I was glad to get away from the entire situation. Remember, scammers don't always come in the form of fake profiles. They can be very real, but have bad intentions and are full of lies. I stopped dating on international chat sites. We'd like to thank this gentleman for sharing his story. We always think of scammers using fake profiles. There are other type of romance scammers out there. If you've encountered an online romance scammer, whether it be one using a fake profile or one using their real profile and real self to try and scam you, we'd love for you to share your story. You can find us on email scammingscammers@gmail.com. Drop us an email. We'll verify your story and narrate it into a video. Until next time, stay safe.